All right, let's dive into DeepSeek, this open source large language model that's making some waves. You know how these LLMs like ChatGPT work? They predict the next word and become surprisingly versatile. Well, DeepSeek, they want to be more than just another LLM. They're really pushing this long-term vision for open source AI. And to help us break down all these complex algorithms and strategies, we've got our expert here.
Well, let's start with the current AI landscape. There's been a huge surge in these open source LLMs, especially after the success of closed models, like ChatGPT. LLMA really set a benchmark, and DeepSeek is entering that same arena.
But scaling these models, making them bigger and smarter, that's got to be the tricky part, right?
Yeah.
I've heard about these scaling laws and how researchers are trying to find the ideal balance between the size of the model and the amount of data you feed it.
Exactly. Previous research, it had some conflicting findings, which really muddied the waters on the best way to get the best performance. DeepSeek tackled this head on. They didn't just build one model and call it a day. They really rigorously investigated those scaling laws, both for a 7 billion and a 67 billion parameter model. They even used a more precise model scale representation called non-embedding FLOX per token to very accurately connect model size to computational cost.
Okay, so they're not just throwing more data at the problem, they're being super precise about how they measure things. What did they discover?
One of their big findings was the impact of data quality on those scaling laws. Having high quality data lets you actually build bigger models with the same computing power.
So it's kind of like if you're training on a data set of well-written articles, the model learns more efficiently than if it's trying to sift through a jumble of random internet comments.
Yeah, think of it like that.
So quality over quantity, that's interesting. And they built a massive data set, 2 trillion tokens, mainly in Chinese and English. It makes you wonder, how did they ensure quality on such a massive scale?
Their deduplication process was very thorough. They removed 4 times more duplicates than, the typical methods. This ensures a very diverse and information-rich data set. And they also took a two-pronged approach to the model architecture. For the 67 billion parameter model, they opted for grouped query attention, GQA. This reduces the computational cost of running the model, making it more practical to actually use.
Okay, so they're balancing model size with efficiency. Did they also tweak the training process itself?
Well, they stuck with Alama's design as a foundation, but they made some key modifications. For instance, they used a multi-step learning rate scheduler instead of the typical cosine scheduler. This gives them more control over how the model adjusts its learning pace. And this is especially crucial for continual learning. They weren't just interested in building a static model, they wanted it to keep learning and improving.
That makes sense given their emphasis on long-termism. It's not just building a model, it's building a framework for future AI development. And that involves making sure it can adapt and learn over time. But how do you go from raw data to a helpful and safe AI assistant? How do you make sure it understands and responds to human instructions appropriately?
Well, that's where the alignment process comes in. DeepSeek uses 2 stages, supervised fine-tuning and direct preference optimization. For the first stage, they used over 1 million examples covering general language, math, and coding to refine the model's ability to follow instructions. And they didn't stop there. They even used data ablation techniques to see how different training examples impact the model's performance. This led to some interesting findings about repetition ratios in the model's output.
Repetition ratios.
Yeah.
So like avoiding those instances where the model gets stuck in a loop, repeating the same phrase over and over again.
Exactly.
That seems pretty crucial for creating a genuinely useful tool. Did they find ways to minimize that?
Yeah, they did. They experimented with different fine-tuning approaches, including a 2-stage method to reduce repetition without sacrificing performance on other tasks. And this highlights their meticulous approach to building a reliable and helpful AI.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. A massive, meticulously curated data set, a cleverly designed model architecture, and a multi-stage alignment process that ensures the model can understand and respond to human instructions effectively. But the question is, does it actually work? How does it stack up against other LLMs, especially the giants like Llama 2? We'll have to dig into their benchmark testing, but before we do that, let's take a closer look at how they tackle code generation, because that's a particularly interesting challenge for any LLM.
Certainly. DeepSeek Coder stands out for its very dedicated approach. They built a code-specific data set, carefully choosing examples of high-quality code. They weren't just feeding it any random code snippet. They were really focused on teaching it how to generate code that was both functional and efficient.
So they were aiming for code that a human programmer wouldn't immediately toss in the trash.
Exactly.
I'm guessing they didn't just use standard training techniques for this, right? Code is a different beast than natural language.
You're right. They went beyond the usual methods, even incorporating a tree-based decoding method. Imagine generating code as navigating a decision tree, with each choice branching into new possibilities. DeepSeek Coder uses this approach to explore multiple coding paths and select the most likely one, and this results in much more accurate code generation.
So it's all about smart choices from, oh, hey there, how can we help?
Thank you for appreciate different base model can data set. Can we explain or can we give a conclusion of the high level intuition of this work and do we have
Absolutely appreciate you asking.
Okay, let's unpack this.
To get a high-level intuition of this work,
Yeah.
I'd say it's about, really.
Long-termism.
Yeah, long-termism, that's
Definitely.
high-level intuition.
So it's all about smart choices, from data set curation to model architecture
Right,
to training techniques.
right.
It seems like they're taking this long-term vision seriously,
Yeah,
really thinking about how to build AI
yeah.
that can adapt and grow.
And also can be responsible as well.
It's all getting pretty technical.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe we can step back and connect it to the big picture for our listener.
Absolutely.
I think that is a good idea.
What's fascinating here is that DeepSeek's approach.
Yeah.
It's more than just about building a single model, however impressive that may be.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So you're asking how all these technical details lead to the bigger picture understanding, right?
Yeah, how do we distill this down to the main takeaway?
It all boils down to DeepSeek's commitment to this long-termism they keep talking about. They're not just building a single model, it's more about establishing a methodology.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. How does their approach to code generation, which we were just discussing, fit into this broader intuition?
Well, think about their tree-based decoding method. It is not just a clever trick for generating better code. They're contributing to a much broader understanding of how to build more advanced and responsible LLMs.
Okay.
Their work... yep, go on.
can we explain the two-stage fine-tuning and explore the detail of the DPO in this work?
Okay, I can definitely get into the details of that two-stage fine-tuning.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, as you mentioned, DeepSeek uses two key techniques, supervised fine-tuning and direct preference optimization.
Okay.
The first stage, supervised fine-tuning, or SFT, is all about improving the model's ability to follow those user intentions.
Yeah, like making sure it understands what we're asking it to do.
Exactly. DeepSeek used a diverse set of over 1 million instances for this stage.
Wow, 1 million.
Yes. And what's really interesting is they didn't just blindly throw data at the model.
Oh.
They used data ablation techniques to see how different training examples impacted the model's performance.
So they're figuring out which data is most effective. What about DPO, direct preference optimization?
Well, this is used to further improve the conversational performance,
I see.
especially in those open-ended generation tasks.
So it makes the AI more engaging.
Yes, it really strengthens the model's open-ended generation skills.
Cool.
They evaluate the models on various public benchmarks to measure the changes.
That's nice.
And DeepSeek explicitly mentions efforts to avoid benchmark decoration and dark secrets during the training stages.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Now, does that help clarify?
Do you have more questions?
So where were we?
It's more than just about building a single model, however impressive that may be.
Right.
Their work on scaling equality and alignment has implications for the entire field of AI research. They're laying the groundwork for a future where open source AI can tackle increasingly complex challenges, all while adhering to the highest ethical standards.
That sounds promising, but we're just scratching the surface here.
It reflects this deep understanding that AI development is an iterative process.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Exactly. They focused on building something that can be continuously improved and adapted rather than trying to achieve perfection in one go.
Right.
So in your own words, it's about establishing the base level where they can incrementally improve.
You nailed it.
And this applies... Oh, yeah,
Does this paper reference the RM, the reward model for the DPO, or just the dataset?
That's a great question.
The paper really focuses on the data side when it comes to DPO.
Yeah.
DeepSeek constructed preference data based on helpfulness and harmlessness.
Oh, okay.
They generated responses using their DeepSeek chat models, and that's where they got those candidates.
So they're using their own models to create the data for DPO.
Exactly. They
Yeah.
didn't really dive into the intricacies of any separate reward model.
Okay, so the emphasis was more on curating high-quality preference data.
Yeah,
And that makes sense given their focus on data quality.
definitely.
Nailed it.
It's interesting to think about their deduplication.
Oh, back to our listener. What's up?
Thank you for explanation. So can we wrap up and give a future research insight for this paper?
You're very welcome.
Absolutely.
We can definitely do that.
Okay, let's unpack this.
From a research perspective, one key area is data.
I've got it.
Considering their deduplication process,
Right.
what other avenues did they explore?
I'm also really curious about their future work,
Yeah, those seem like a potential game changer.
but I'm sure our listener is eager to hear more about those benchmarks too. For sure. So let's move on to that.
Let's dive into those benchmarks.
Sounds good.
DeepSeek went head-to-head with some major players, including Llama 2. Their 67 billion parameter model actually outperformed Llama 2,
Awesome.
notably in code, math, and reasoning.
Nice.
For example, on the GSM 8K math benchmark, DeepSeek scored 63.4%.
Okay, that's a significant difference.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just keeping pace, it's exceeding expectations.
Yeah.
Did they just focus on the standard tests?
Well, it didn't just stop at the usual suspects.
Okay.
They also conducted held-out evaluations.
Wow.
Think of it like a surprise pop quiz for the AI.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
This helps ensure that the model isn't just memorizing.
So they put it through the ringer.
So what does this all mean?
Well, DeepSeek isn't just another AI model.
Absolutely.
It represents a shift in how we approach AI development.
It also involves how we evaluate them.
Right. It's time to dig into their benchmark testing.
Their benchmark results, show some very competitive performance.
Great. That's
Yeah.
impressive, but all this power is great.
Exactly.
Responsible AI, it goes beyond just safety measures.
Right. Safety was integrated throughout the entire development process.
Oh.
This included tricky loophole prompts.
Loophole prompts.
The exact